What happens when standing up for what's right costs you everything? Lala shares how being fired turned into a surprising catalyst that led her to Arizona, the perfect place for her to tap into her true path and passion. From diving into political and spiritual work to finding her voice through music, Lala's journey hasn't been easy. But she found a partner who supports her growth even when they don't see eye to eye on everything. Tune in to hear how a setback became the turning point for her future. This is episode 58, Lala's journey from fired to fearless. Welcome to Healing with Haley. I'm your coach, Haley Kirk. On this podcast, we dive into ways to heal, embrace, and truly love our lives. Here's my belief. So much of our suffering comes from what we believe. I'm here to help you understand your mind and question those thoughts to start your healing journey. Ready to get started? Let's go. Welcome, podcasters. So I have my amazing friend Lala here. Say hi, Lala.
Hi.
So I think it was so cool how we got back in touch. So I'm going to tell our backstory really quick. I found one of your videos and I was like, is that Lala? And I saw it on Instagram and she's like blowing up. She's doing amazing things. And I was just like, of course she is. She's Lala. And we met in college at UVU
Yeah.
in our anti-human trafficking club. But actually, you're going to have to remind me exactly how you came into anti-human. I'm not remembering.
No idea. I think you were on fire at school, I think tabling or something, and you were just so charming and just so like congenial and I've always been interested in human trafficking because my grandmother was actually kidnapped as like a young like girl, like a baby. She grew up on a sugarcane plantation and ran away when she was 13.
Oh my
So
God.
I've always been really interested in, anti-human trafficking efforts and like just hearing her stories and stuff growing up. It's always been something that I wanted to advocate for. And um, I think I wrote like a little essay in high school. And then when I came to UVU, I just think I found you in the hallway or
That's
something.
amazing. It was the universe bringing us together.
But you did some good work. So.
Yeah, I remember we did this docu-series where we were talking about like, do you remember that? We were like filming
Oh,
my friend Brian, and it was you, me, Lydia. Do you remember Lydia?
yes, yes. And then it's funny. I think I found like just like candid photos from that day in like my Google Drive
Oh my God, you
way
gotta
back
put
when I was clearing it out. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like how that was like 10 years ago.
so long ago. Yeah, and I think we did that. We did like gene drives for homeless teens. We did documentary viewings. We did
Partnered with
like banquets.
Office. Remember, they were helping and then Operation Underground Railroad when they
Oh
first
yeah.
started.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Oh
yeah.
my, yeah. We did
They
so much.
did. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. And so now you're doing so much stuff. So why I love bringing people like you on the podcast is because I'm all about empowering women. And I love the idea of like being fearless. And you just epitomize someone who's like, I don't care. This is my authentic me. This is my mission. This is my passion. And you're so fearless. And when I think of someone who's like just it embodies all of those aspects, I think of you and I have to pick your brain apart. So so tell me, since the Anti-Human Trafficking Club, what have you been doing? Reunion time.
College. I worked like I said, I worked for restorative justice program for like 3 years. And during that time, my father had gotten diagnosed with a stage 4 cancer, and he was back in Connecticut. And my sister, who was power of attorney at the time, she was pregnant and like she had a late she got pregnant at like 40 41
Wow.
first. And
Wow.
it was, she didn't want to be like stressed out. She really had to take it easy. And so I moved back to Connecticut in 2017 and took care of my dad for like a year. And then after he passed away, I kind of was tying up a lot of loose strings that I had like back in my hometown, because when you leave and then you come back after a while, it had been like 7 years since I'd been back home, so I was taking my time to kind of just heal from a lot of childhood stuff that we were kind of talking about before, like, trauma that everybody has growing up. And then I was
Yeah.
also, taking time to get to know my dad's family a little bit better and connecting those parts. And then I had gotten a job with that e-commerce company that I was telling you about, like around COVID, because they were the only people that were hiring. Ended up getting some promotions with them, and they flew me out. Had relocated me out to Arizona,
Oh.
where I live now, but I'm no longer with that company for reasons that we discussed before the recording.
Yeah.
So now that the way that I left that company is how I got pulled into Turning Point, because I was like, there's no way that this could be I'm the only person that this is happening to. And I found like-minded people
Yeah.
amongst the Turning Point crowd, and they kind of pulled me in and got me connected and got me to start back up in again in that grassroots arena that I love so much and that I was doing so much in college.
Yeah. So go ahead and tell us what happened at the e-commerce job where they had, like you said, they wrongfully terminated you.
Yeah, so I had gotten there, and within a week, I was just inundated with sexual information from my coworkers, and this was all going on under the guise of DEI and
Well, tell us what that acronym means.
diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the thing is, just to let me set up the scene for you, I'm the only woman of color on this team. This is a team of, anywhere between 25 and 40-year-old Caucasian males. And so they were using DEI on me, calling transphobic, a white supremacist, because I didn't want to talk about abortion on a team call. Like, I just got bullied and harassed by a mob of Caucasian, like queer males. And they weren't even gay, lesbian, or bi. Like they weren't even transgendered or gender dysphoric. They were queer Caucasian males that were using DEI against me. And I was the only woman of on the team. This is what I mean by this is like crazy. And so
Yeah.
I was getting like harassed by them, and that looked like, them making false reports about me, them trying to frame me for sexual harassment, them calling me a white supremacist, wearing t-shirts that said Satan respects pronouns on it, sitting across from me at a team sink and staring me in my eyes without blinking. Just, I mean, it goes on and on and on. They stalked my social media account, found out I was a Christian and that I would post like, stories about it, not even posts about it, just like on my stories, I would post about it. And they would like record my stories without me knowing, like, they made fake accounts to add me. It was just insane. And then they like used these recordings to try to get me fired through HR. And it was just becoming such an issue. And then I made a complaint about one of their DEI displays that they had. They had a display of Bayard Rustin. And if for people that don't know who Bayard Rustin is, he was a civil rights like grassroots organizer for Martin Luther King, and
Mhm.
organized the Million Man March, which is all well and good, but he had also gotten arrested for sleeping with three men in a parked car in Pasadena in broad daylight. And, the police had came to the door and found like this threesome in a car and had arrested all of the guys. It was two white guys and Bayard Rustin, who was a black guy. They all got arrested for indecent exposure, had to spend like 50 days in prison. And
Wow.
rather than having a display about Bayard Rustin's work as a civil rights activist, they had a display about how Gavin Newsom, 60 years later, whatever, pardoned Bayard Rustin for sleeping with verbatim two men in a parked car in Pasadena. And so I just like took a picture of this display and I wrote an essay because I feel like it's just going too far. I feel like there is
Yeah.
space, and I do believe the Constitution like protects gay and lesbian marriage. I believe that, but I don't believe that I should be subjected to like displays that are advocating for and promoting threesome orgies in cars under the disguise of DEI. Like that is not what DEI is. And there's no like checks and balances or vetting process of what these HRs, like the HR can release as DEI. And as a woman of color, as a mixed race, half black woman, I do believe that sometimes there's some grifting going on with the LGBTQIA plus community and the black plight. And this was kind of like, they're using, in my opinion, they're using kind of like the 14th Amendment to usher in this sexual degeneracy and forcing people to capitulate to it when it really is supposed to mean something else. As far as like my story goes and turning point goes, like I think I'm supposed to be doing exactly what I'm doing right now.
I agree. It was like a domino effect for you. Like one thing led to the other and it was like so smooth. You were supposed to be in that e-commerce job because that brought you to Arizona, which then brought you to Turning Point.
Right. And the crazy thing now, I live 7 minutes away from their headquarters.
It's like
So it's like
ironic.
it was just crazy how it all ended up happening. You know, Yeah, so that's what I do now, and I'm just in the grassroots space. I'm making like community partners. I started making music again, making the music I actually want to make, and just like, I have a garden and work, just kind of living life.
That's so fun. That's so, so fun.
But yeah, so tell me a little bit more about your the work that you do with like women and women empowerment and how did you get there?
Yeah, yeah. I've always loved the idea of helping women, like anti-human trafficking, that I couldn't fathom the idea of someone doing that to someone. I just like I couldn't fathom it. I had never experienced any kind of abuse. I was, fortunate in that regard, but like that just continued, and I've always felt this draw to women. Like I'm like we're just so amazing, and I think a lot of women struggle to let that light shine. I really do. I think that, and it's kind of interesting. Have you ever heard of Eckhart Tolle?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, I love him. So he talks about the pain body, right? Have you heard him talk about pain body? And he just says pain body, think of like Gollum in Lord of the Rings. And he's like, Gollum used to be Smeagol, right? Like he used to be a normal hobbit, and then he became this creature, right? That was this total opposite of who he is. So there's pain body, there's like a community pain body, right? Like Native Americans, he talks about how they have a communal pain body. Maybe his way of saying pain body could also be trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so and then he says that women have a pain body, right? Like their pain body is the ego of men decided they were better than women, and then they silenced us. And he said that before then there was a lot of women prophets and a lot of women healers and matriarchies, and we were leaders, like we were dominantly leaders. and then men silenced us for so long, and so we have this pain body. And I when he said that, girl, I was like, I've never heard anyone talk about it that way. And it's just so interesting because I think that, like you said, there might be some component of genetics or nature versus nurture. You could say like there's both of those components of kind of like dimming us down, like, shh, no, 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 we don't need to hear
Yeah,
from you.
it goes back to kind of what we were talking about before, maybe before the recording, but a woman that's fully like in her power is extremely intimidating
Yeah.
for a man, especially she's beautiful, and for a man who's trying to attract her because now he has to contend with his own inadequacies, and that is a ego wound, right? But like a alpha man who is fully in his power, he's not threatened by that,
He's so attracted to that.
so
Yeah.
attracted to that because a woman that's fully in her power will fully embody that feminine archetype anyway, you
Yeah.
know? So that femininity will attract an alpha male. I think where we get in trouble. So I agree with you that there is this like um, aspect of women, that, like you said, the pain body, or how Eckhart Tolle describes that, of like, being diminished and having to shrink and not shine too bright.
Yeah, be small, be soft spoken. Yeah.
I think every like really intelligent, smart, beautiful woman has ever experienced that. I feel like the only
Right.
people that haven't only women that have not experienced that are women that are either, not taking their intelligence that seriously, or there's probably women that haven't felt that way, but I think any woman that is like super, like me, we're dynamic, we have personality, we have thoughts and opinion, we've experienced that because it's challenging to someone who's expecting to be the leader, right? And I do believe that there is a place for submission, like in a relationship. I believe in that to an extent because I don't think that two kings can live in one castle. But there's also something to be said about compromise and respecting like each other's like um, gifts and talents. Um, but what I was gonna say is, back to the boomers. I had a boomer father who hated that I was outspoken. He hated that I was talented, and he didn't like that I was opinionated at all.
Whoa.
He tried to diminish that out of me, and I'm just so strong-willed and like stubborn that it didn't work. But it did affect some of my self-imaging through my 20s. I probably would have started doing music or like releasing music a lot sooner, if it wasn't for that. But what I've realized, as I heal after his death, is that that was a him problem. That wasn't a me,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
that was a him problem. And I found someone that loves me even with all of my opinions and with all my talents. The
Yeah.
makeup I have doesn't feel like he's diminished because I shine. And that's
Wow.
what we're dealing with. We're dealing with that. And people, want to call it misogyny, people want to call it sexism. I call it like just insecure people because you're
Yeah.
not you're going to find that in women too. It's not just like men that are going to treat you that way. So
Right.
you're going to find, it's just people that are not living in their truth are,
Right.
you feel threatened when you're living in your truth. And because women are naturally agreeable and they want to get along and they want to have community and stuff, I think they're more inclined to suppress themselves just to get along.
Mm.
Maybe social conditioning or whatever, but I think that's, men are more apt to compete and have those those interactions that might be uncomfortable, where women, I think, by and large, I'm generalizing here, but they're less kind of confrontational with each other. Like if somebody says something mean to them, and it's like, they don't want to stand out too much. I don't know. So yeah, I've seen that too. I've seen that as well. And I hope I want everybody to find their talents and what they love, and don't let anybody, tell you differently about it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm right there with you. And like I think that there's something about music and dance. I'm telling you. Like I really think, and my podcast is called Healing, like Healing with Haley, right? And because I think there's so many modalities to healing. I don't think there's just one. And I found for myself a big one for me has been dance and music, right? And it's like there's something very, I think, when women dance and sing and put music together, I think there's some magic there. I don't know what it is, but it's so beautiful to step into that space. It's like, because if you think about like the feminine energy is very creative, seductive, sensual. And those things are beautiful. And it's so weird sometimes where like, you mentioned growing up like religious, you said LDS.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did too. And it's kind of interesting how we were kind of told like, oh, like don't do anything sensual sexual or else. And then when you get married, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, turn it on. And you're like, wait, what? Like, and that's where I think dance can really allow that freedom to express, right? To allow freedom and movement and expression. And I think it's such a healing modality. Like I love it so much.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I love about the church, the church. Um, so
The church.
there's a lot of things that I have even still keep with me that I've learned like as a child, but I think, with the conversation or the topic about women, what kind of turned me off was they don't believe women have the priesthood, and I have personal testimony that women have the priesthood.
Wow.
And so Mormons don't believe that. They believe that only, men can have the Melchizedek priesthood. And I just haven't found that to be true, at least in my life. I think that women can, prey upon, things and bless things. And I do believe women have the priesthood. Um, so, I mean, there's that with the church. And it's kind of like the dancing and the singing is like the releasing of that like wild feminine energy. And so I could see how that could be liberating to people that have been so, confined, especially growing up Mormon. So I could see how that's something that, heals you. But there's also a dark aspect to that as well. Like there is dark feminine energy, just like there's dark masculine energy. And I think, finding that balance because femininity is so beautiful. It can nurture, it can heal, it can lead, it can even protect to some, extent. Um, but it can also, there's also like a shadow aspect to the feminine energy as well. And the seductiveness, if it's not controlled or if it's kind of like out, like unleashed, it can be extremely destructive as well. So I'm always like cautious when it comes to that. I love talking about like femininity, both the good and the bad like aspects. Um, but you know, I've seen men spend their entire life savings on a woman who was just dancing. So
Yeah,
it could
yeah.
be, it could be used for good or it could be used, for evil. So it just depends. But that's like a double-edged sword.
I like that differentiation. I think, yeah, that is interesting because I think that when used, so in that instance, right, that instance you're talking about where like she's dancing probably like at a strip club, maybe some kind of environment like that. See, to me that just reeks trauma. And remember we worked with Misty, so we worked with Misty and she, oh, I'm trying to remember the organization name. It was called Jules, I'm pretty sure.
Cool,
And what
cool.
she would do is she would send these care packages to
Yes.
strip clubs. Remember that? And it was just building connections. It was just built, she was just trying to like, I know what the life is like. I know, like, I'm just here to make, I'm a friend. I'm a friend, is what she's trying to do.
Yeah.
And she would build that relationship because she knew deep down these women didn't want to be in these environments. They were taught from a young age, my body is my worth. And I'm like, oh my God, like what she's doing is beautiful work. It's beautiful work. And I think that when we are on a healing journey and we're dancing for the sake of dancing and artistic expression and healing and all those things, I think it's appropriate when we're doing it in a manner of like a strip club setting. I think it's tough, right? It's tough because that's that's coming from a place of, this is, I'm operating from trauma. I'm operating from unconscious thinking,
Hmm.
right? If we're in our conscious mind, if we're in a state of healing, right? I don't believe we would subject ourselves to that kind of connection. And there's not even a connection when you're dancing. It's a trade, right? When you're dancing in that way for someone who you don't even know, I don't think that's a genuine human connection.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't. I think that if you were to dance that way with someone you love, I think that's very beautiful. You know, it's like I think that context is huge
Yeah.
as well.
That's like your man or your whatever. Um, that's the context is huge and totally it reeks of trauma. I mean, I have a couple I did a discussion with a young lady on my podcast about prostitution and stripper culture, especially in like female rap music.
Oh
And
wow.
just kind of talking about like we hear a lot of this dark feminine energy on female rap, right? There's a lot of talk about like prostitution culture, like turning tricks and stripper culture, and like every single female rapper is like a stripper, some variation of a prostitute. And it's become like pop culture. And we were kind of just breaking that down because, I do music, she does music. And, when the root cause of a lot of this like lifestyle, as far as the dark aspect of like female sexuality when it comes to like stripping and prostitution and just that like trauma, it really all comes down to, personal value. So a lot of the work that I want to do in 2025 when it comes to self-worth and self-value, it's like partner with different, women ran organizations, and have just like workshops and different like events that um, empower women to love themselves, or to build that self worth, like whether it even be like, even like beauty tutorials or like a fun like makeover thing or like a fun, night out with your girls, and we maybe bring a speaker in. I don't know. I'm just like throwing out ideas, but just to have more focus on self-worth and self-value, because it doesn't matter like where you come from or what your childhood was like, but if you have a strong sense of self and you're healing and you're in that healing journey, there's a lot of stuff that you're not going to tolerate, and maybe an abusive boyfriend that's making you go strip in a club is one of those things that you won't tolerate if you're functioning at a healing level. Um, Yeah.
It's so cool. So you're gonna like work with women. Hold on. What exact are they gonna be like weekends or retreats or events like or
Yeah.
all of the
I,
above?
I just had the idea, like, since last year I met this young lady who did like natural hair workshops for like young black girls that had different natural styles, because weave is a big thing, and just loving your own hair too. Like I love weave, I wear extensions, but sometimes I don't, and it's
Yeah.
just I don't have a problem with not wearing it. Just getting girls to a point where just them being like naturally beautiful is enough. You don't have to
Yes.
do too much. Just being naturally beautiful is enough. Like, I wear makeup because I just like the way it looks, like if I'm on a
Yeah.
camera or something like that. But also don't have a problem just going out into the world without it. I don't need it.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like finding that balance. And you know self-worth is so important to our young girls. A lot of the heartbreak that they go through, a lot of the heartbreak that I went through, like in my 20s, a
Yeah.
lot of it had to do with not um, finding footing in myself, which goes back to that like pain body.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my, I have like a million questions of what you're saying. So how does someone develop self-worth? How had how have you developed it and how would you recommend someone develop it?
Yeah, I'll speak for myself because everyone's journey is different, but you got to really identify like where that pit in your stomach is coming from. Is it coming from your dad? How's your relationship with your dad? Is it coming from your mom? How's your relationship with your mom? Is it coming from, where, I would just, charge people to kind of try to find the root cause or the analysis of like what broke your heart as a child, or what, um, and I say child because so much of like our personalities when we get older really come from like our experiences as a kid. I know for myself, my relationship with my father wasn't great. Like I was a very independent, strong-willed young girl, and he was like a boomer man, a boomer Greek man who had a very traditional way of how he thought women should behave. And so, contending with that with me, like it was a hard childhood. And I always felt like, he didn't love me because I came off a little bit more masculine, or, and I had those issues even going into relationships and stuff. Even with my music, I felt like I couldn't release my music because it was too hard. And like I constantly had this like identity issue because my I didn't feel like my own father liked me or accepted me. But like the older I got and the more I processed, our relationship after his death, I just realized, he was just a side effect of his era. And like it sucks that like he had me so old. Like he was 48 when he had me, and I had a boomer father. But that's just he was a product of his era, and that's just what they thought back then. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just not, modern. And I just had to contend with that and come to the, conclusion that that's a him problem. That's not a me problem. And, that healing between my relationship with my dad is what allowed me to, forgive myself and give another man a chance to love me. And I did, and it's working out pretty well, and it seems like my man loves me just the way that I am, and I don't have to like pretend to be delicate or soft spoken, or pretend to be this or that. Like because of how true the love is, and because of how you know we love each other for how like true and authentic we are, I naturally want to be delicate with him. I naturally want to be sweet and cuddly with him because he makes me feel, protected, and he makes me feel like accepted and loved. So, not everybody has that. And, you got to find it. You got to go where the love is, and you got to go around people who are going to accept you for who you are. And, you know, never ever shrink yourself to make somebody comfortable. And if you are finding yourself shrinking to make someone else comfortable, that person's not your real friend. Or that person's not really in your back, has your back, or maybe you just need to have a conversation with them or figure it out, because people that love you want you to shine. People that love you want you to be the best of yourself. People that love you want you to cultivate your talents.
Hmm.
And me and my man don't agree on everything. He wants me to cultivate my talents.
Wow.
So, and same thing with, him. We don't have to agree on everything, but you got to agree on the important things. And yeah.
Wow. That's so beautiful. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm on my phone. My phone's about to die.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah. So how could people like find your music or find your podcast? Like what's a good way to connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. That's like where I'm most active. And then all of my links are on there on my bio, the Lala Andrews, just how it's spelled in one word. And then my music links are all in my bio there. You can find me on iTunes under Darth Lala. That's my rap name.
I love that. That is so cute. You what?
Like, what are you, a Sith Lord? I'm like, actually, it's fake news, guys. It is. I honestly believe that the Jedi are communists, but that's very,
That's hilarious.
but you can find me on all music streaming platforms, Darth Lala, and on Instagram, the Lala Andrews.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Lala. This was so insightful, so entertaining. Just,
Yes.
I can't wait to re-listen.
Thanks for having me on.
All right.